the reason you're not ready for this. I think the reason why I bombed almost every research paper I've ever written in both college and high school is because I'm really bad at being direct with what I mean to say, and I'm like terrible at doing research. But I think I eviscerate when it comes to like comparative analysis. Like you call it compare and contrast, I call it bread and butter. I think that I'm just good at that. I was thinking about this as I was editing our last video I put up on the channel, and I was like, damn, I have so many examples of everything. I was like impressed with myself. And I'd like to think I was born with it, but I really just think it's because my favorite TV shows is Numbers, and in Numbers, every crime drama, it's like crime drama, and every episode there's a new math equation, and so the main character, Charlie, has to use an analogy in order for us to understand whatever math he's doing, so I think I've just kind of inherited it from that. And then that got me thinking about our D&D table, and the sorceress Sorka telling me that she loved my comparisons because they worked really well, which, dear listeners, we had a player character who did not know the inciting incident that brought us together as an adventuring party occurred. To this day, don't know why he decided that that was the character move, but he decided it. And we brought up this like execution of a family, and he was like, oh, I didn't even know that happened. And I looked at the DM and I was like, if I'm understanding this right, this event changed the world. Like suddenly everyone is paying attention to the moment right now. And when the DM confirmed that this was the case, I turned to the player and I was like, man, how did you not know Fantasy 9/11 happened? Welcome to the Feminine Byte, where we are gonna answer all of the questions you've never asked. We are your hosts, Erin and Emily, and today we're not talking about 9/11, but we are discussing something of similar impact, that being A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Susan Collins. But, hold on, fret not. Everyone who thought that we would be talking about an international incident involving the United States and the Middle East, the Iranian hostage crisis will be mentioned in this episode. This is new information to all of you and also to Emily. I did not tell her this.
I had no clue that we were doing... Okay. Alright. Great.
I'm getting better at these openings. You had no idea where I was going.
No, I had no clue. Okay. I am well equipped for this conversation. Yes.
My favorite part of the episode now is just, what can I say to just stammer? I've labeled it as unhinged introduction. Okay, so what's Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes? This is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, and look, we don't have time to catch you up on 3 books and 4 movies of lore, but fear not, I have summarized every Hunger Games book in 1 sentence with generous amounts of commas, but they are technically 1 sentence, and my unwilling assistant, Emily, who's blinking in Morse code so that someone might save her from my manic clutches, will be reading these sentences for us. Emily, if you please.
Okay. Book 1, The Hunger Games. Primrose Everdeen is reaped to go into the Hunger Games, a mandatory death ritual created after the districts rebelled from the capital, and Katniss Everdeen not only volunteers for her little sister, but she wins the games by defying the capital and goes home to her with her tribute partner Peeta. Book 2, Catching Fire. President Snow is mega pissed at Katniss for her defiance and Riggs the next Hunger Games, so she and Peeta have to compete again, except because of the rigging, now a bunch of winners have to go too, which pisses everybody off, and in the end, the rebels get Katniss out of the arena, but the capital gets Peeta, and District 12, Katniss's home, is blown to bits while they run to the fabled District 13. Book 3, Mockingjay.
Yep.
It's Rebels versus Capital, and the Rebels win, with Snow dying, and unfortunately Prim also dies, because, I don't know, thematic reasons, I guess.
Can you tell which one I don't like? Which book I don't like in the trilogy?
Quite a mystery.
Alright, now that we're caught up, everything important we're all caught up. Now we all know what the Hunger Games is. Now we'll talk about the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes. So we're gonna do a lightning round of like questions because Emily only saw the movie, and then I read the book, and then watched the movie because my sister basically was like, "You pussy, you can totally read the book before you watch the movie," and then I downloaded the audiobook and I listened to it for 16 hours straight, uninhibited. And then went to bed, woke up, and watched the movie. I was just, that whole week for me was just nonstop Hunger Games. So, because Emily, you haven't read the book, any questions, concerns, anything that you might have that I can quickly answer, so that way when we go into talking about this, you're like, what about this? And I go, well, actually, in the book.
Okay. Yes, I did have a couple.
Okay.
The first one that I had was, who is Grandmam as a character other than just Coriolanus's grandmother?
So,
like, what is her
purpose was like to sort of be the backwards racist grandma. Like that's what she was in the book.
Okay.
Like Coriolanus, like the reason why she's called grandmam is because grandmother felt incorrect, but so did ma'am. And so they just kind of smushed it together and it became grandmam. And she's like psychologically unstable because she has PTSD from being in the capital during the first rebellion.
Okay.
And so she is like the die-hard patriot of the capital. Like whenever the anthem comes on, she sings off key. That's shown a little bit in the movie. It's just it's seen as something that's very cute, but in the book, Snow is like, oh my god, she's singing again.
Yeah.
And like they don't bring up that she sings the anthem every morning, and she wakes them up to sing the anthem every morning.
Okay.
And her entire thing is just like every time Snow talks about the districts and Lucy Gray, she'll be like, yeah, but she's like a district rat. She's not a real person. Like she serves this interesting thing of like Snow is a classist and a little bit xenophobic, but his grandmother is that times 10. And so she does serve to really like you can kind of put Snow, like if there was a gradient, you can kind of pinpoint him because his grandmother is a good reference point. And like, her character development is that towards the end she ends up like liking Lucy Gray, despite the fact that she is a quote unquote district rat.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of goes into not really. It doesn't. There's no good segue there. But the other thing that I was kind of missing watching the movie, and also just kind of being like out of the Hunger Games, I feel like for a while, is I wasn't quite sure who Coriolanus's father was in relation to the Capitol, and also what his beef was with the guy that Peter Dinklage plays.
Highbottom?
Yeah. Like, I didn't understand that whole thing. And, yeah.
So Crassus Snow he's only mentioned in the prequel, so you didn't miss anything in the main trilogy with Crassus.
Okay.
So, do you want me to just, like, go in chronological order of, like... So,
yeah.
So Crassus and Dean Highbottom, I don't remember what his first name is. I'm pretty sure it's not Dean, because he is a Dean.
Yeah.
But he and Crassus were students under Dr. Gall, and then for an assignment, they had to be like, what is a way to severely punish the districts? And Dean Highbottom came up with the Hunger Games when he was drunk. And then Crassus kind of took it a little bit seriously, and then he drafted up like a formal thing to turn it in as an assignment, and he put Crassus's name and Dean Highbottom's name on it. And then when Crassus died in the war, and the war was won, Dean Highbottom got all of the credit because Crassus was dead.
Okay.
But Crassus never, or not Crassus. Crassus wanted the Hunger Games. Dean Highbottom never wanted the Hunger Games to be a thing. It was just something he made up when he was drunk, which is why Dean Highbottom like doesn't want to be there ever.
Hates Coriolanus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also The only other important thing about Crassus and the Snows is that their fortune was tied up in District 13. So when District 13 rebelled, they lost all of their money. That's why they're destitute.
Okay.
And because District 13 was like nuclear weapons and things like that, that gets moved to District 2 because because of the way that things happened. So, because the people who had investments in weapons in District 13 fell and it rose in 2, that means there were people in 2 who got very rich very fast, and that's the Plinth family. That's why Snow fucking hates the Plinths. Because he feels like they stole the Snow fortune.
Yeah. Okay. And isn't the Plinth family Sejanus's
Yes.
family? Okay. Okay. See, here's the thing about the going into this movie, not reading the book. I'm 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 a avid anime fan.
Yeah.
I am used to getting thrown characters with multi-syllabic names. I understand them and I learn them fairly quickly. With this new installment, I was like, I don't know who is up, what is down.
A lot of the characters' names come from a Shakespeare play, I think also called just Coriolanus.
Really?
Yeah, Coriolanus, the name of Dr. Gall's first name, I don't remember what her first name is. Crassus, I believe. Sejanus is also a name from it. It's all from that play, which is about some military dude. I looked into it. I didn't look too far into it, but.
Because I was like, okay. Like.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, Suzanne Collins is very intentional with all of her names. Every single name that she gives a character has a very specific meaning, which I do appreciate about her. I don't love that, like, half of the characters' names in the prequel come from this one specific Shakespeare play, because I'm like, okay. If you picked Romeo and Juliet, people would be making fun of this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what's the main character's name? Romeo. What's the other character's name? Juliet. Who's the guy that doesn't like Romeo? Tybalt?
Yeah.
Like, I just think it would be just cringy if it was a more popular Shakespeare play.
It also took me a while to understand that Lucy Gray's first name is Lucy Gray and that her from full name isn't Lucy Gray.
Yeah, she's Lucy Gray Baird.
Yeah, that took me a hot second.
Yeah, and that's how all of the Covey people are. They have the first name, middle name as a color. Because there's Lucy Gray, Billy Tope, Maud Ivory.
Oh!
Yeah, they don't go into that into the movies, but they mention that in the books.
I didn't even pick that up. That makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Don't worry, Snow didn't realize it anyway either, because he was like, I didn't even know taupe was a color. That's a literal line in the book.
The DM that we share, when we were on the speech team in college, he used to have a taupe suit, and so did another friend of ours. So they started going around and just saying taupe is dope.
That's
so when you said taupe, I was like, oh, taupe is dope.
But yeah,
okay.
She's all the names are super important, but like because the movie really it's not a very good adaptation. It really just feels like a highlight reel of the book.
Yeah.
Because like in the movie, Clemencia doesn't make a lick of sense.
Who is that again?
The only Asian actress.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, in the movie she was just kind of like the conniving bitch that wanted to steal Coriolanus's idea.
Which is not what happens in the book. What happens in the book is that Dr. Gall says, you will all come up with ways you will work as a class to come up with ways to encourage the capital to watch the games.
Mm-hmm.
And because Snow had brought up ideas like gambling and things like that, and because he's very charismatic, the students, they all sort of decided that they would vote on 3 people that would draft it up and turn it in. And so Snow got a spot, Clemencia got a spot, and Arachnia Crane got a spot. But what happens is later that day, Arachnia Crane gets stabbed and killed. And so when Clemencia and Snow are going home, Snow's like, we have to do that report. And Clemencia's like, Arachne just died. Are you kidding me? No, I'm going home and crying. And Snow, not trusting Dr. Gall, is like, I should write up that draft just in case. Mm-hmm. And so he does it. And then he and Clemencia are brought to Dr. Gall's office. And Clemencia's like, what did you write? Because we didn't write anything. And he was like, oh, I drafted something up. And she's like, give me the bullet points. And Snow genuinely gives her the bullet points. He wants to succeed with her. He doesn't feel like she's encroaching on his intellectual properties because Arachne had died. It was a reasonable reason for Clemencia to not participate. Mm-hmm. And so when they're with the snakes, and the paper is in the snakes, Dr. Gall, and it's, I don't know why they changed this in the movie. Dr. Gall doesn't tell Clemencia that they will attack if they don't recognize the scent until after Clemencia's hand is already in there. Oh. Like, she sticks her hand in, and then Gall is like, by the way, if they don't recognize your scent, they'll attack you.
That's so much better.
Yeah. And then she gets attacked by the snakes, and they give her the antidote, and then Snow is like, is she gonna be fine? And Gall's like, I guess we'll find out, right? Mm-hmm. I guess she should have just done the report with you. And that's when Snow is like, this bitch crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, Clemencia has a major role throughout the rest. Like, she leaves at that point in the movie, but in the book, she remains. When Snow ends up in the hospital due to the bombing, like, he sees Clemencia again, and her skin is, like, shedding like a skin's snake, and she has all of these colorful scales that are just growing on her. Because they don't make it clear enough in the movies. In the books, Dr. Gall, she's the mutt scientist. You know, like the dogs and the mockingjays and the jabberjays and all of, like, the experimental animals?
Yeah.
That's Dr. Gall's job. So, like, this snake is just another one of those mutts. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's like a huge secret covering up what happened to Clemencia. They say, like, oh, it's a flu. And Clemencia is upset because nobody came to see her. Well, obviously they couldn't because they were told that it was something else. And Snow eventually just goes with the lie. He was like, they said you were contagious, so we couldn't visit you, and that's why I didn't visit you. Mm-hmm. And all of that stuff. And then when the 10th game actually begins, Clemencia, she's there with Reaper. And it's notable that before the snake bite, she was this very calm, caring, energetic person with a lot of love in her heart. And when she is the mentor with Reaper post snake bite, she is cold. Like, there are several points where they're like, why don't you give him food or water? And she goes, because he hasn't done anything to deserve it yet. Like, she just becomes a cold, conniving bitch. Mm. And, like, when I first saw Clemencia, like, on screen, and that she was being portrayed by an Asian actress, I was like, God damn it, the only Asian actress is gonna get fucking... Here we are, torturing people of color again. Then Arachne Crane was white, and I was like, okay, we're not pulling a Don't Worry Darling.
Yeah. Right.
Made me feel better. But yeah, I do feel like, you know, of all of the characters to cast that their role sort of got cut out from book to movie, like they did get cast as a POC person. Mm-hmm. That's kind of frustrating. I mean, Arachne did get cut as well, but, like, I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way, because, you know, they put in stuff that didn't need to happen with Snow. Mm-hmm. Like, bruh. So, yeah that's... Clemencia was robbed in the movie, and that made me so upset.
Yeah. So I think those are kind of like the main gaps that I was thinking of. I'm sure that I'll probably have some others.
Yeah.
But I did want to point out, or, like, kind of tell you, like, my, at least, movie theory.
Yeah.
Because I was very proud of this. I was like, oh, I think Erin's really gonna like this. I
have one question for you though.
Yes.
Before everything went down in District 12 at the end, would you have considered Snow and Sejanus friends?
Before District 12?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I was just wondering because you didn't read the book. I was like, because some people are like, they're besties, and I was like, Snow fucking hates Sejanus. There's a line where Sejanus' mom is like, you're his only friend. And in Snow's monologue, he goes, how sad to have no friends.
It was very clear, at least by the first, like when everybody thinks that they're going to, like, graduate, or, like, Snow is going to get the Plinth Prize at the very first. It's very clear that people don't like Sejanus. Because they're talking shit about him behind his back.
All the time.
All the time.
Also...
Sorry, go ahead.
Another thing that the movie changed, the Plinth Prize, not a thing at the beginning of the book.
Interesting.
So what happens is that there are, if you excel, and this is kind of true to like college and high school, if you excel, you can get scholarship money to go to university. So Snow's thing right now is that if he is very successful as a mentor in the Hunger Games, he will get one of the prizes and be able to afford to go to university.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it is after Sejanus is pulled out of the arena in order to, like, buy favor, because that's what Sejanus' father is known for, is buying people's favor.
Mm-hmm.
He offers the Plinth Prize as a sort of apology for Sejanus interrupting the games. So, like, the Plinth Prize is a game changer for Snow, because because at that point, Dean Highbottom was like, even if you win, I don't know if I'll give you one, because I don't like you because of your dad. Mm-hmm. So when the Plinth Prize is announced, Snow is like, that's a game changer, because Dean Highbottom has no control over that, which means if I win the Hunger Games with Lucy Gray, I get the Plinth Prize, I get to go to university, I won't be with the rest of the poor capital citizens, or God forbid, in the districts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as soon as they were like the Plinth Prize, they were like right at the beginning, I was like, of course. I was like, of course. But anyways, I interrupted your theory. I'm sorry.
No. Because on the topic of Sejanus, when I was watching this movie the very first time, I didn't realize, like, who Sejanus was, like, in terms of the cast. So when they go and, like, mock the way that Sejanus calls his mother Ma, I was like, how racist of you? Because it's, like, a very, like, I feel like it's a very, like, common phenomenon in like southern, and maybe I'm stereotyping, and I apologize if I am stereotyping, but like in southern households, but specifically like black southern households,
yeah,
I was like, what the fuck? So I was fully expecting Sejanus to be black, and then he wasn't, but that's a whole other tangent.
Yeah.
And edit that out if that sounds like not.
No. I mean, to me, I don't actually know if Sejanus' actor is white. I couldn't tell either way.
Yeah, he's racially ambiguous.
Cause he looks like the Stranger Things kid.
He does. Let me Josh Andres Rivera. Cause he is Rachel Zegler's
boyfriend.
I remember this. Okay. So back to my theory. So at the very, I'm kind of jumping around because I'm gonna be talking about the very end of the movie.
You're fine. No, you're good.
So I was watching this movie, and the entire 2.5 hours I was watching it, I was like, I'm not really sure, like how I'm supposed to perceive Snow, because it feels like there are parts where it is like they are trying to shed him in a good light by like being a good friend to Sejanus. The whole Lucy Gray plot, I mean, obviously until
yeah
the end, But like I was like, I'm really trying to figure out like who like whose perspective or like who is really like controlling this narrative. And at the very end of the movie, when the screen cuts to black and then you hear present day Snow, it's very clear to me that that specific cue means that Snow was the narrator of this movie the entire time. And that he wants us to think that he was doing all of this for the love of Lucy Gray. He wants us to think that he was doing this for his friend and like for the greater good of like helping his family and all of these things. But part of it is because he's so out of touch with what us, the audience, the common people understand to be good or bad anymore. It He doesn't do a very good job of it.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah.
Like, he's like, I'm completely justified in everything I do. Look at this. And then the audience is like, no, you're the bad guy. I hope you know that
Yeah.
you're the bad guy.
Yeah. Because, like, it seemed like. And that's how, like, the marketing for this movie seemed as well. I was like. And for the book, I was like, are we really going to have, like, a Snow apologist story here? Is that really what we're needing? And then it wasn't the Snow apologist story that I thought it was going to be.
No.
At all. Which I'm happy that it isn't.
Yeah. I have two things to say about this in relation to your theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually cried at the end of the book, and it wasn't for Sejanus, and it wasn't for Lucy Gray. I actually cried about Snow, because there was something so depressing about how Snow is oblivious to the abuse that the Capitol does to not just the districts, but to Capitol citizens. Like, there's a moment in the book where Snow is repeatedly confused by Sejanus' mother and how she's afraid of the Capitol, even though the Capitol is constantly putting Snow and all of his friends in danger. Like, Snow is like, why are you afraid of the Capitol? It's the savage districts you need to be afraid of. Like, he doesn't get it. Especially because, like, Clemencia gets attacked by snakes. Arachne Crane gets murdered. And Snow gets blown up. There's a set of twins that's not mentioned in the movies, but there's a set of twins that are the Capital Mentor kids, and they also die in that bomb blast. Like, so many people die, and Snow is constantly being manipulated, and he just doesn't see it as, like, the Capitol. He doesn't understand that the Capitol is the problem. And it just made me sad that Snow thinks he's like a person with agency making choices, when in reality, every breath he has ever taken was planned by Dr. Gall and by extension, the Capitol. She abuses him into being her successor, and he doesn't see it. And like here, I have a list of like everything the Capitol did to Snow and the people in his life. They initiated a property tax to weed out the families in the capital who lost their fortunes in the uprising. Snow's money was tied up in District 13. So when they went down, so did the Snow fortune. Snow's father dies during the uprising. Dr. Gall poisons Clemencia. Uh, Dean Highbottom gives Snow the worst tribute candidate to edge him out of financial aid for college. Dr. Gall blackmails Snow into entering the arena during the Hunger Games. Where Snow kills a tribute and gets injured. Snow is blown up during the walkthrough in the arena, and then Snow is caught cheating and given the choice of fading away in capital poverty or being a peacekeeper. The movie does it differently, where they're like, you're getting sent to District 12 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in the book, it's like you can either live the rest of your life as the poor person in the capital, or you can go be a peacekeeper. And Snow hates the idea of being poor. He would rather be a peacekeeper in the district than be poor in the capital.
Mm-hmm.
And then later we learn that Dr. Gall, I don't know how obvious this is in the movie, but Dr. Gall sent Snow out to the districts intentionally just for the summer. She never intended to keep him there for the 20 years. She just wanted him to, like, have personal experience about how savage the districts are, so that way when he comes back for his training as a game maker, that he has no love for the districts. And, like, Snow is a never good person. He's an unapologetic, xenophobic, classist asshole. Like, there are moments of genuine emotions, like moments that peek through when you see that Snow has the potential to be good if he was given a chance and if he was deprogrammed. And, like, I ended up crying because, I've seen this stuff happen to real people in my life where they fall into ideology that contradicts who they were before, and then they just become it, and I lose them as friends and family, and it was just so depressing because it was like, Snow, you think you have an ounce of agency, but you were groomed by Dr. Gall, and it was fucking depressing.
Right. I think that's part of the reason why um, Tigress kind of is disappointed by Snow in the last scenes of the movie. And I was pondering that for a little bit of like, why does she not call him Choreo? And like, why does her saying that he looks exactly like his father hurt so much? And it's because he has turned into his father, and that is not what she wanted for him.
Yeah.
Because she knew he was capable, or at least thought he was capable.
Yeah.
Of being better.
In terms of, like, ideology and, like, Snow had two choices. He could either become like his grandmother or he could become like Tigress, and he ended up becoming like his grandmother because Tigress definitely represents the more. She's still a capital citizen, but she definitely has a more empathetic eye to all of it. Like, she's the one who tells Snow, like, you have to get her to trust her by telling her that you care about her. Mm-hmm. Because imagine getting picked up and being whisked away to here. I would be terrified. She leads with her humanity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, yeah, she's disappointed. Mm-hmm. The other thing I have to say in relation to all of this, and I don't see a lot of people talk about this, when they do talk about Suzanne Collins and her movie adaptations, they are more successful, whereas others like Aragon, Percy Jackson, Avatar: The Last Airbender were not. Like, Hunger Games is kind of known as, like, some of the best adaptations out there. Mm-hmm. And then it's mentioned she's a screenwriter, so of course her movies translate well to the screen. But they don't. The Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, it's a good movie, but it's a mediocre adaptation. It really felt like watching a highlight reel because the majority of that book is Snow's interior monologue. Mm-hmm. And that's just not captured on screen. Like, the scene with the shirt at the very beginning is 2 minutes on screen, but the book goes into like 30 minutes talking about the shirt that he wears to the reapings. Yeah. And all of that stuff. Like, there's so much time put into it that you can't get that enough.
Also, can we talk about the fact, this is so unrelated, but can we talk about the fact that this audiobook is done by Santino Fontana? I love Santino Fontana. Do you know who this man is? Okay, so one of his most famous roles is Hans in Frozen. Yeah.
You tell me Hans from Frozen is Coriolanus Snow? Of fucking course.
Of course.
Of fucking course.
But he is my favorite character in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Fucking Greg. I love Greg so much, and he's such a good singer, and like he's been on Broadway. He was at least as far as I know, most recently in the original Broadway cast of Tootsie, which I don't like Tootsie. Let's be very clear. Tootsie is fuck Tootsie. But I love Santino Fontana. And I think like some of the stuff that I've heard of his audiobook is just like perfection. Yeah. It's so good. Sorry.
No, the audiobook narrator was very good. I was very impressed.
My 30-second man rant.
But like, quality of the adaptions aside, I think the most genius thing about the movie adaptions is that they prove every point Suzanne Collins tries to make in her books. Mm-hmm. She is critiquing entertainment and how, like, the entertainment factor of the Hunger Games, which serves to dilute the abject horrors and tortures to something palatable, and all of the film adaptations are PG-13. even though the books are rated R.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's just so interesting that like when Suzanne Collins is like, here's my critiques about entertainment and horror and disillusion and all that stuff, and when they make the film adaptations, they're like, no, we can't put that in. That's not palatable. Suzanne Collins was right. That's like the fact that these adaptations, some of them are not good, proves Suzanne Collins' points about capitalism, and I think it's the funniest thing ever. So like in Ballads, something brought up a few times is the focus. One, it doesn't focus enough on the gore in the book, and the starvation. Like starvation is a huge factor in the book, and it is barely mentioned, barely showed in the film. Like we don't want actors to be actually starving themselves for a role. Mm-hmm. That's correct. But in a digital age where there is makeup and CGI, you can make people look hungrier. Like, yeah. Not skinny, but you can make them look like they haven't eaten. Like, you can do the things, and they didn't even try. They, like, didn't want us to think about starvation. Like, they do have this scene where the one guy is cutting off the leg, of someone to, like, at the very beginning, they see a guy cutting off a leg to eat the leg because there's food scarcity. Oh, and yes. That's about right. As intense as it gets, although I don't remember her name in the book, but, like, Snow mentions this girl whose father was the one who did that, and so every time he's near her, he's like, oh, do I go with the district kid or the cannibal? I guess the cannibal's preferable than that. Like, he constantly brings up the fact that her family were cannibals during the siege. It was... And that doesn't make it into the movie because it's not palatable. And the most obvious example is that the book characterizes the 10th Hunger Games as boring and forgettable. There's 2 cameras, the sound quality is bad, everyone runs and hides, and it's rare to actually see anything that's going on. But in the movie, there's cameras everywhere, the audio is good, we hear everything, and the movie gives us a beginning bloodbath because that's action and entertainment. Lucy Gray is running to Jessup and looking for him. But in the books, there's no bloodbath. Lucy Gray does not find Jessup. We assume that she finds him, like, off camera. And it was just, like, so many theories are, like, this, and that. Like, there are some people who are like, oh, Lucy Gray inspired Capital Fashion to be as campy as it was. And it's like, no. Because barely anybody watched the 10th Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows who Lucy Gray is. Like, literally nobody in the districts recognizes Coriolanus, and none of them even realized that Lucy won. She just showed back up, and nobody cared. Like, no, Lucy Gray does not have this great impact that people who've only watched the movie theorize they do, and it's because in the books, the 10th Hunger Games was barely watched to begin with, and then because of Lucy Gray and Coriolanus and all of these things, Dr. Gall destroyed all the evidence of the 10th Hunger Games except for one copy for scientific purposes. Mm-hmm. And Snow is like, good. Everyone will forget Lucy Gray. That's the whole point, is that everyone has forgotten who Lucy Gray is by the time that we get to Katniss's Hunger Games, except for Snow. All of the nuance is sort of lost in the movie adaptation, but I think that's what Suzanne Collins was always trying to say. That, like, when we turn modern day horrors into entertainment, the nuance of the situation is lost. Because, I mean, like, if you think about, like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Mm-hmm. And how many, like, body movement psychologist quacks were like, she's guilty because she's looking up and to the left. You know what I mean? Of, like, just how awkward it gets when it becomes entertainment.
Yeah. And that could be said a lot about a lot of recent dramas of just, like, celebrities and all that, too.
But also, like, how, like the Vietnam War and even what's going on in, like, Palestine right now. It's just, like, it's all being filmed and we're all And it's part of it is like we don't want this to be entertainment. It should be horrifying. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the more you film it and the more you dramatize it like this, the more desensitized we become.
If it's the only way that we're receiving this information, like it, and it, the medium's on its own, not to the fault of anybody's, like, dissipates the nuance. Like, it's really hard for us to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love that Suzanne Collins is like, yeah, movies will be palatable, and then her movies get adapted into being palatable. It's just like, wow, Suzanne Collins. That's some meta genius. That it's like, it doesn't matter if her adaptations are bad, it will still prove her point. Mm-hmm. And that's what Suzanne Collins, I love her. She just writes a book and then she disappears back into her cave. And honestly, J.K. Rowling, take notes.
The one thing that I really wanted out of the movies more than anything else was just more about the other tributes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in every other Hunger Games, like, you still get, like, a good understanding of, like, at least some of the other tributes. I feel like I got nothing out of these other, like, I get, like, Jessup made sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like, even still, like, I feel like I didn't get a lot about Jessup. I really wanted to know more about Reaper, because that whole scene of Reaper collecting these children's bodies and, like, tearing down the flag of the Capitol, like, that was super powerful. I just don't know, like, any other motivation behind it other than he wanted to make a statement.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You can.
I really liked Wovey as a character, but I just, like, I didn't get anything about her.
Wovey was so good.
I know. Like, at first, I was, because I didn't know anything, I, like, saw Wovey, and I was like, did they just cast an actress with Down syndrome so that we can pity the girl with Down syndrome when she dies? But when I continue to watch the movie, Wovey, like, really holds her own until the end.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, like, it just, I wish I had a little bit more about her other than, like, oh, she's the mousy girl from District 8.
Yeah, in the book she's only described as a runt, and she gets the nickname No Show Wovey because she never shows her face on camera, and the only time she does show up, she immediately dies. Like, when the cameras finally catch a look on her. Because in the movies they have Dill drink the poisoned water, but in the books it's Wovey who drinks it.
Oh.
And my theory as to why they changed that, changing Wovey's death, is so that way we wouldn't have people making videos discussing her death in relation to her intelligence because she has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
I think that they gave her a very quick death that had nothing to do with her intelligence, so that way we wouldn't be having those we wouldn't have gross people making gross discussions. So I think that was a good move. And also, they gave her more lines, because Wovey does not have a single line in the books, and they gave Wovey way more. And I was like, this was good, because just the way that her like dying words, I'm like, I can't handle this, where she's like, is it over? Can we go home? Too much for me.
Yeah.
But part of the struggle with the 10th Hunger Games, and it works in the book, and I don't know how well it works in the movie, is that, like, the point is that this is the first time that they're trying to turn it into a spectacle, and the district kids are not complying. So these mentors are not getting any information out of them. I believe it's Lamina or Coral who we get mentioned that, like, all she did in her interview section with their mentor was just cry. And so they knew nothing about her. Yeah. I think it was Lamina. And, you know, interestingly enough, they mention over and over again that this is the Hunger Games. Of course the male tributes have an advantage over the girls. Like, even Snow is like, girls can be tough, but, you know, men are men. And I love that they flipped that so quickly in the games, where, like, the deadliest people in the games are Lamina and Coral,
Mm-hmm.
the girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
But Reaper has a lot of stuff to him too,
yeah.
which is another like sad thing that I'm so sad that they missed out on, because they were like in the movie you're like, wow, Coral is the threat, but in the books, right before the games begin, Reaper goes to every tribute and he apologizes for the fact that he is going to butcher them and win the games. And so that's why when he, does the burial ground, it makes sense because Reaper does not want to be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But someone has to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it might as well be him because he's the District 11 boy.
Yeah.
And also, how fucking mental apologizing to all of the tributes for but before you kill them, like that's some next level mind games.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't actually get that much information about literally anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the beginnings of how the Hunger Games came to be.
Mm-hmm.
But in the books, it works because you can constantly feel the resistance that the tributes are having towards the mentors. But in the movie, there's just not enough time for that.
Yeah. I really think that they could have split this up into 2 movies.
Yeah. I think they should have split it up into 3 because there's 3 parts.
Yeah.
3 parts, 3 movies. I think it would have been fine. Or a mini series.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much going on.
And I was trying so hard to like be a film nerd and be like, oh, these parts like correlate exactly with like a 3-act structure and blah 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 blah. I had it written in my notes, but it's just like it doesn't really.
No, this feels like a short story compendium.
Yeah.
That's how it really felt like. That there was the first story, the second story, the third story.
Yeah.
Because like each act is almost its own story.
Right.
I just want to point out that the one line that Lucky Flickerman says when describing Dill tuberculosis on legs. Love that.
Yeah.
Somebody tell the Green Brothers that even the Hunger Games cannot escape tuberculosis. I don't remember which Green Brother is like super like everything can be led back to tuberculosis. I can't remember if it's Hank or John. I want to say it's John Green. Somebody's got to tell him that not even the Hunger Games can escape it.
Not even the Hunger Games.
So something I wanted to talk about is like why it's actually called the Hunger Games. Like why call it that? Like the actual games itself. And the prequel does not explicitly say we call it the Hunger Games because XYZ, but there's enough information in the prequel that we can figure it out ourselves. So it's brought up that in the District's rebellion with District 13, that the main strategy was isolating the capital to starve them out. A lot of Snow's trauma is centered around food, and he most certainly has food anxiety at best and an eating disorder at worst. Something they also don't go into in the movies is just how often Snow is thinking about food. And additionally, as well as being as food and starvation is a central theme in the original books, the sequel, the original concept of the sponsorship we learn in the Hunger Games is to provide food and water, which thus implies that the first 9 games means that no food was given during the actual games, which means that the tributes had to kill each other before they all starved to death. It was a literal Hunger Games. And I always wondered what motivated the kids to kill each other at the beginning, beyond just like, we'll torture your loved ones if you don't participate. But if your choices are either win, get murdered, or die of starvation, you only have one option.
Yeah.
But the deeper part of this book, the prequel, and also the trilogy, constantly tries to tell us that the threat that you see is not always the thing that is currently killing you. Systematic problems are hard to identify, and they're often deadlier because they can go so long without being detected. Like Marvel in the first book and movie, he didn't kill Rue. The Capitol did. Like, yes, Marvel stabbed her with the thing, but like who created the situation that put them there. It's the capital.
Mm-hmm.
The Peacemakers didn't kill Sejanus, and neither did Snow. Dr. Gall did. Because she was the one who was moving those pieces. And that does not change that, like, Marvel and Snow and the Peacekeepers are all murderers, nor does it mean we should pardon them. What it's saying is that until the hidden problem is taken care of, there will be another Marvel killing another Rue, and another Dr. Gall manipulating another Snow to kill another Sejanus. That these are just going to keep happening. And they show this, that's why the District 11 girl is a young black girl with frizzy curly black. Like, why Dill looks so much like Rue and why Reaper looks so much like Thresh. They're telling us that it's another Thresh and another Rue. That's systemic problems. It's a repetition of events until you get rid of the systemic problem.
Yeah.
And now, I'm about to be a white man on a podcast, Emily, because I'm about to blow your mind.
Oh my god.
We call it the Hunger Games because the book tells us indirectly that the first 9 games were a death match until the tribute starved. Mm-hmm. Food is the focus. Children are reaped, which is a term for harvesting grain. After the 10th games, if you won, there was a food prize for the districts. If you put your name in the bowl more than once, you get food. It's all about food. Mm-hmm. Starvation... starvation can basically be equated to Marvel killing Rue. It's the threat that we see, but it's not the threat that's killing us. It's the thing that scares us, but the reality is that you can go weeks without food, but days without water. So the first 9 Hunger Games have nothing to do with hunger, but everything to do with thirst. Because after 3 days, the tributes would die of thirst, which means that food doesn't actually matter in all of those early games. It's always been about the water. It's always been about thirst. And in my analogy, we can think of the threat of dehydration as systematic oppression. It's the threat that you don't think about because the oppressor has forced us to look everywhere else via their propaganda. We blame Snow for Sejanus' death even though Dr. Gall was the person who set it up. And it doesn't make Snow innocent, but it proves that killing Snow ultimately accomplishes nothing until the system, because the system will remain unchanged. There's no point in killing Snow. He's starvation. Dr. Gall is thirst. You have to get rid of her. And that's why Katniss kills Coin at the end of Mockingjay and not Snow, because Coin didn't want the system to change. She just wanted to be in charge of it. She was under the delusion that she would be a better alternative to Snow, but she is starvation the way that Snow is starvation. You have to get rid of the thirst, because you will die of thirst before you die of starvation.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, because in my notes specifically, I made a note in the movie when they introduce, like, oh, now you can, like, buy your tributes, your mentor can buy with your donations these things. All they buy is water.
Yeah.
You do not see a single food item.
Yeah, also glass bottles, you assholes.
Right. I was sitting there, and, like, the one part where Coriolanus, like, orders, like, these 6 waters to, like, smash into whatever.
Which didn't happen in the books.
Oh, really?
It's so much sadder in the books. I can't remember who the District 12 boy mentor girl is. I'm pretty sure she's the cannibal girl. But she basically is like, hey, Snow, our tributes are like a pair. And that's obviously an allusion to the original Hunger Games. And so they are like, so when Snow does his interview with, like, Lucy Gray, she's mad because she was like, we're trying to market them as a pair. And Snow was like, oh, I'm sorry. So when it's clear that Jessup has rabies, she summons the water because she's like, well, if my tribute can't win, then maybe yours can.
I have a question about Jessup and the rabies.
Yeah.
So, how does he get rabies, first of all?
He gets bit by a raccoon in the zoo.
Okay.
Either that or a rat. It's something that's planted very quickly, is that there was a massive rabies problem in the capital, and that, like, a bunch of animals still has rabies. And when he goes to feed Lucy one time, he notices that, like, the handkerchief that he gave her is, like, Jessup is using it to, like, stem a bleeding wound. And he's mad because it's his handkerchief. Because, of course, Snow would be mad because it's his handkerchief.
Yeah.
He's like, I gave that to Lucy. Why does Jessup have it? Literally, that's what he's thinking. He's the worst.
Yeah. Okay. Because that was not clear in the movie at all.
Yeah, in the movie they're like, oh, Jessup got bit by a bat in the truck. And I'm like, dude.
That's so annoying.
I was like, don't bring up a bat. Come on.
Not the time.
Like, why did you change it to a bat?
Not in the post-COVID world, Dusty. But does rabies actually make you scared of water?
Yep. I don't know if it makes you that kind of scared of water, but it does make you hydrophobic, yes.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because I was watching a movie and I was like, does that make sense? But
yeah.
Yeah,
something else that's not mentioned also is that the puddle of water is contaminated with rabies. I think it's because of Jessup, but it's not made clear in the book. And Reaper drinks from it, so Reaper also contracts rabies.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I have to pee. I will be back in a hot second, but I got more thoughts and prayers.
Okay. Do you want me to just fill?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Itsy, you don't need to go to the bathroom with me.
I saved a lot of TikToks regarding this movie, book. One of them is I think one of my favorites on this topic about how the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes kind of flips this romance trope on its head of your love can fix him, which is really refreshing to see. And another TikTok that I really like that I saw was pretty much any TikTok about like when Snow starts beef with a 16-year-old girl because she reminds him of his ex-girlfriend from 60 years ago.
Love that.
Those are good memes. So,
one of my TikTok comments went very popular with someone who was like, make the comments look like Snow's search history, and mine was venomous versus poisonous. Because he asks if the snake is poisonous, but he should have said venomous.
That's funny.
Every time I open up TikTok, it's like 13 new replies, and I'm like, God.
I'm just trying to think of.
Yeah. Also, the deaths at the very end. That is not how it happens in the book, and the snakes do get unleashed. Because in the bombing, it's not actually in the movie. It's the son of the president, but in the book, he's the grandnephew of the president, and an entirely different kid dies. And Dr. Gall is like, we're gonna punish them, and then she sets out the snakes, and Carl dies from the snakes. Wolvie doesn't die. Wolvie is already dead. Because I believe at that point it's just Lucy Gray, Carl, and Reaper. And Carl dies. The thing happens and Lucy Gray is not affected by the snakes. The snakes are gone. And then it is a battle to the death between Lucy and Reaper. And Lucy Gray wins because Reaper has also contracted rabies. I don't remember specifically how she kills him in the book. But yeah, it keeps going. Oh, it happens in such a way that like Reaper dies and we don't know if Reaper is dead or not. And then Lucy Gray like goes and checks his pulse and then she just like sits down. And then they like wait 30 minutes and when he doesn't get up, they're like Lucy Gray has won.
Interesting. So here's my thing, is I kind of went into this movie thinking that I would hate it.
Me too.
So when I started watching it, I was like, wow, I hate every character. Every character is a pick-me. I still believe that every character is a pick-me. Everyone, no hate to the actors. I think that they did a fairly decent job, but everybody acts like if you're familiar with Delaney Rowe, I think her name is, on TikTok. She does TikToks kind of mocking like actor-y tropes of like, oh, like the one girl who thinks that you're obsessed with her when she's making pancakes or whatever.
Yeah.
They all act like that. And that makes me very mad.
Yeah.
But then also just like um what was I gonna say?
The only one who made sense was Arachne Crane, who was described as being over dramatic and loud.
Yeah, yeah. Um
Like Clemencia was supposed to be a sweetheart. She was just not.
um I wanted I wanted to like Sejanus. I really did. My frustration with Sejanus is that the call was coming from inside the house, and he decided that he could spend his time better doing guerrilla warfare. And it just like it didn't make sense for a character who cared so passionately about the things that like the thing like his values,
Yeah.
and he has the opportunity to fix them almost quite literally handed to him on a silver platter.
Yeah,
But
because
then
his dad buys his way out of everything.
right. And I think that was like it was crazy to me that there's one point of this film that I agreed with Coriolanus, because when they're in 12 and he's like, "Oh, we're going to do this." Coriolanus is like, "No, because to you, it's just, oh, daddy has to get you out of jail." But to everybody else here, it is a lifetime of pain. And I was like, "What matrix did I just step in for 30 seconds?"
Yeah. That's like, that doesn't happen in the books. That is just pure movie. But, like, you know, it's the only type of introspection that Snow has. The only time
Mhm.
Snow ever cares about Sejanus is when it affects him.
Yeah.
Because he's like, dude, this could come back out on me. And in the book, when Sejanus is messing with the rebels, that's all really Snow cares about is, like, how is this going to affect me?
Mm.
He doesn't really care that actually much about Sejanus at all. And in the books, actually, Sejanus' dad buys his way into graduation and also Snow's way into graduation, because technically Snow didn't graduate.
Mm.
But the dad sort of bribed. And then they put it to a vote, and Dean Highbottom got outvoted for not allowing Snow to graduate, which was kind of funny. Which means that Snow can now go to officer school. Like that was a reveal, so that like Snow can now pursue higher education because he has his degree or his high school degree.
Yeah.
And then Sejanus, he enlists as the peacekeepers because he wants to be a medic, and they mention that, but they don't mention the fact that the Peacekeeper Corps won't let him become a medic because he is too good of a shot. Like in training, he was too good of a shot, and Snow was like, "Why didn't you fake?" And he was like, "I was. You all just suck that bad that when I am purposely trying to be a bad shot, I still look like a good shot. And they won't put me in the medics because I'm too good of a shot."
Interesting.
Because his dad took him out shooting once a week
Mm-hmm.
as like a forced bonding thing.
Yeah.
So like yeah, there's a lot of nuance. So much of Sejanus' character is lost in the movie. If you were a big Sejanus fan, or if you wanted to know more about Sejanus, then I would suggest reading the book.
Okay.
Because like his mother is a genuine character. She's not just a one-off thing. And also, Snow is the only one who makes fun of Sejanus for calling his mother Ma. It's just a Snow thing. I don't know why they had other characters make fun of it when Snow was like, "Oh, you call her Ma? What a district boy." Like, of course, you're so uncivilized. Like, it's like, why would you give that to other characters? That's just how Snow thinks.
Yeah.
And, like, it is so upsetting that, like, Snow, because of Sejanus' death and because Snow does not admit that they were never friends, the Plinths are like, well, Snow is the only one left, and so they give basically Snow the Plinth fortune because he was Sejanus' best friend. And Snow is like, well, I guess Sejanus did one good thing for me.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's conniving and evil and
I
gross.
like I really wanted to. Like him like actively speaking out against the games in the movie. I was like, yeah, you go. Period. That's cunt. But then I was like but then he was like I don't know. Like it just it was
They do it better in the books. In the
mm,
movie, it was just sort of like a one off thing, but like something that Dr. Gall kind of like approves of Sejanus is the fact that he is affording the tributes humanity. And she's like, that's it. Like, we need to make them seem human and like persons, and like, we need to get people to like them. Sejanus is onto something, and Sejanus is like, wait, never mind.
yeah.
I take it back. Like, he does not want to be helping Dr. Gall. Also, Dr. Gall, way better in the books.
Yeah.
She's way better in the book. She's torturing a rabbit the entire time and starts every sentence with hippity hoppity. I love that woman. She's a monster. I love it. Okay. So, there's a lot of discourse about the Hunger Games. A lot of discourse. And I want to point out that Suzanne Collins is very good at writing parallels. Like, she wrote this prequel knowing people were going to compare it to the Hunger Games, and she leaned into it, and that's what made it so successful.
Yeah.
And, like, the obvious comparison we're going to have is Lucy Gray to Katniss because they're both the District 12 tribute girls.
Mm-hmm.
However, ball that up, throw it away. Don't compare Lucy Gray to anyone. She's not our parallel. I want you to compare the grandmother to Katniss's mother, Tigress to Katniss, and Snow to Prim. Because Snow and Prim are both the youngest member of their three-person family, where the older child is the provider because the adult is too traumatized to function. And it doesn't get detailed in the movie, but the book heavily implies that Tigress does sex work in order to keep her family afloat. So much like Katniss, she is going outside the bounds to perform illegal activities in order to keep her family alive, much like Katniss does. Yeah, Tigress also goes above and beyond to set up Snow to be successful during the 10th Hunger Games. Again, she works so hard to get him a clean, nice shirt so he can make good impressions.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 minutes in the movie, but we spend so much time with it in the books. And then, additionally, Snow and Prim have the same trauma with food anxiety, and they also watch a loved ones compete in the Hunger Games. Like, Snow is a sociopath, yes, but his love for Lucy Gray is clearly conditional. But in the book, there were moments where he seemed genuinely in love with her. So much that in the book, Snow starts to market Lucy Gray as a capital girl born in the wrong district. So that way she might be able to stay in the capital with him once she wins. You know, Snow's like, I don't think Snow would believe trans people exist, but I think he believes that trans district people exist. You could be capital and born in the wrong district. It's a literal thing he does. And like some people hate the book for like trying to humanize Snow with a tragic backstory, and I think people are just mistaking explanations as excuses. Because I really think what Suzanne Collins was trying to get at is that sometimes the same tragedy that forges the monster also creates the hero. Because Snow was consumed by his trauma, and it became his excuse on why you punish the districts and how he became a poisoner and he died for it. And Prim refused to let the trauma take over her life, and she became a healer, but she also died for it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to their deaths, again, it's not Coin or Gale who killed Prim, just like it wasn't Katniss who killed Snow. It's the oppressive system that made one a monster and one a hero, and it killed them both. And it's easy to see them in conversation with each other because he is poison, Snow is poison, and Prim is antidote. And both of their skills come from herbalism and plants and nature. And this just makes me really mad why Suzanne Collins killed Prim in the last book. Even when I play devil's advocate for myself and try to justify it of like, everything Kat was fought for was taken and her reward was to be a mother, even though she never wanted to be a mother. Like, that was just a weird ending. Katniss having her sister back would have been more cathartic and would have made sense. And then it would have been interesting to like make the choice that in the years to come it was Prim who took over Panem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would have been a better message because I really think that Suzanne set up Prim and Snow to be dramatic foils. I mean, Snow's whole thing, like his imagery is tied up in roses and her name is Primrose. We already know that like every name Suzanne Collins picks is made with intention. Nobody is accidentally named. I think she
Mm-hmm.
always intended us for to look at these two characters together and be like they came from the exact same background. But one of them became a monster and the other one did not let that background consume her and she became a hero.
Mm-hmm.
But because the system is set against everyone, both of them died.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never seen anyone talk about this. Everyone compares Lucy to Katniss, Snow to Katniss. Everyone's comparing everyone to Katniss. And I'm like, no,
No.
it's Snow and Prim.
Do you think that parallel to Snow and Prim also has to do with like the differing of privilege?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, Snow.
Snow does. I mean, like he like in that time didn't have a lot. Like obviously, like they are
Yeah.
like they don't have money. I'm not saying privilege in that way, but like
He went from having a lot to having nothing.
yeah.
Versus Prim,
Prim.
who always had nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I firmly believe that villains and bad people come from two sources, which is villains are born out of entitlement in that they don't have enough experiences to have a fully developed empathy in order to see other people as human, which are usually like rich chads and people like Jeffrey Bezos, right, where nothing bad has really ever happened to them and they just kind of refuse to afford people humanity, right? So there's entitlement villains and then there are the trauma villains, which are the people who have gone through traumatic experiences and then have co-opted that as an excuse to justify their bad actions and to sort of um use it in such a way that like I'm justified because these bad things happened to me and you should feel sorry for me and I'm not the bad guy. And those and that's where people get hitched. They don't like some the modern sentiment is that people are really frustrated with like villains with tragic backstories trying to justify why they should get redemption arcs.
Mm-hmm.
But Suzanne Collins doesn't want to give us no redemption. Like
Thank God.
thank God, yeah. No, like Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender was successful, and then everyone tried to clone him, and they all failed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what every, like, if you just put an edgy boy with the most horrific war crimes you could think of, plus redemption, you get Zuko. And we're like, no, that's not how that works. And they're like, that's how that works. And we're like, no, that's not how that works. But, so Snow is like this almost like combo platter of an entitlement but also a traumatized villain.
Mm-hmm.
That like he has trauma that justifiably is upsetting and that is worth sympathy and empathy. Nobody deserves to starve. But this is dressed up by his xenophobia and his classism and all of that stuff where he was like I'd literally rather be dead than be poor. It's basically Snow's entire thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I would say that privilege absolutely plays a role in this because I mean even Prim becomes you could argue that she's a part of the privileged of District 12, not in a monetary way, but Katniss is a hunter, so Prim is one of the most well-fed people around.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about the Iranian hostage crisis, and specifically some gross imagery attached to it. We're going to be discussing a real-life hanging, so if that is not for you, this is a section you'll want to skip.
Mm.
Now, this has nothing to do with Sejanus' death, Emily. This actually has everything to do with Arachne Crane, who's a very important minor character in the book, but she's pushed to the side much like Clemencia for the time's sake of the movie.
Yeah.
She's the girl who gets stabbed.
Yes.
So Arachne Crane, she's this very loud classmate of Snow's who gets killed when she is teasing her tribute in the zoo. And this is the girl who Snow tries to save, but she like dies in his arms. The movie skips everything about Arachne Crane because all of her post-death content is rated R. You could not show any of that on screen. She's basically marketed as like this martyr killed by lawless district heathens, and that she's like made as soldier sacrifice. And they have this huge funeral procession. Snow has to sing at it. It's kind of silly. But the gruesome detail, which is why I brought up the Iranian hostage crisis, is that at the end of the procession, the tribute who killed Arachne is hanged on a crane, with the rest of the tributes in a cage at the bottom of the crane. And so while they're having this funeral for this teenage girl, the backdrop is another teenage girl hanging with starving children at the base forced to watch. My jaw on the floor because I immediately thought of the crane hangings that were photographed during Iran during the Iranian hostage crisis. I'm sure this connection hasn't been made by popular audiences because, like, the people who would have been alive at the time are not the target audience for the Hunger Games, and I only know it because they used the photo for inspiration in the movie Argo, which is a dramatization of the Iranian hostage crisis, specifically how the CIA used a fake movie to extract 6 people trapped in the embassies. And to no surprise, the movie Argo is factually inaccurate because Hollywood wanted to make a more compelling story for a viewing audience. So, like, I wonder if Suzanne Collins was intentional with this imagery, referencing another horrifying event that got edited by Hollywood because Hollywood didn't think the actual ending was good enough. I'll link the ending credits of Argo so everyone can see it. I'm assuming that you don't want me to show you these images.
No, I've watched Argo. I can't think of the exact point that you're talking about, though.
In the film, they also do it in the credits. They show you what photos were inspirations, but in the film, it is just this one very quick moment when the agent is in the car and he's just passing, and it is just a guy hanging from a construction crane.
Oh, okay. I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when that happened in the Hunger Games, they're like, oh, the District 10 girl is hanging from a crane. I was like, oh, we ain't being subtle. Suzanne Collins brought out the sledgehammer of symbolism.
Yeah.
Alright, we're about a minute 19. Is there still stuff that we need to talk about ballads? Or have we...
I've covered pretty much all of my notes. Yeah, I've covered everything in my notes.
Okay.
I'm not as thorough as you are.
No. I have one more thing about theories, but I don't want to...
Part 2?
You just want to spend the week just looking at theories? And we'll do a part 2 just on theories?
I think we should.
Okay, good, because I need to yell at everybody. You gotta need some fucking etiquette when it comes to theories. Stop telling people they're stupid.
Stop it.
There's so many people who are like, media literacy is dead because all of these bad Hunger Games takes. And look, there are some people with bad takes out there, but we don't know if those are like 13-year-old girls who are making their first theories or if they're trolls. So maybe everyone just stop being assholes.
Period.
But okay, we'll spend the week or the month looking at theories, and then we'll come here and we'll just talk about theories, our favorite ones, what theories that we might have about the Hunger Games itself.
I think I might need to watch the movie again.
Yeah.
Or read the book, whichever one comes first. I think it's gonna be watch the movie again.
I mean, the movie is shorter.
Yeah. I'm also not good at reading, so...
I failed reading class. So we will see you next time. This has been the Feminine Byte with your hosts Erin and Emily. And tune in next time for Hunger Games theories and I don't know what else we're doing. We'll figure it out. Alright, y'all have a good night.
That was a good proper send-off, so I don't want to ruin it.
That's gonna be the send-off.